It's rare that I can make an episode that has mostly good news, and well, that's what we got this week, because we have Discord finally supporting Wayland in their beta builds. We have KDE gaining big donations with their new notification that they added in Plasma 6.2, and we have confirmation that SteamOS powered devices are going to be coming. We don't know when, but they are coming. And of course, we also have this message from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by SquareSpace, your all-in-one platform to create, manage, and publish your own website. Squarespace has really easy tools to make sure anyone can end up with a nice-looking, well-optimized website, no matter if they know how to code or not. They have what they call their blueprint system, which lets you pick from a variety of templates that are pre-built and will suit any type of website, whether it's a simple blog, an online store, a video platform, whatever. On top of that, to go further, Squarespace has their own design engine to create your own pages. You can just drag and drop elements where you want them, and you can change the colors, the fonts, and just tweak the template however you want. And once you have something you like, you can add extra features like creating your own online shop, complete with a payment system that handles credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and more. So check out squarespace.com/theLinuxExperiment, the link is in the description, so you can give Squarespace a shot, and you'll also get 10% off your first website or domain name purchase. Okay, so it looks like the once a year KDE notification asking for donations that they added in Plasma 6.2 is working as intended. As pointed out by Nate Graham, the first time this notification popped up was on December the 1st. And this apparently resulted in more than double the amount of donations in December in just a few days on PayPal compared to the entire month of November. At the time I'm recording this, less than a week into December, they already have 58,000 euros of donation compared to October, which was the best month of the year for donations, which only reached 13,000. Judging from the KDE donations page, this is just not stopping. Donations are starting to happen day after day, and this clearly proves that this notification, as simple as it is, does its job very well. And as more people will get the update to Plasma 6.2, they will also see that notification, so KDE can probably expect a new surge every time a major distro releases a version that uses Plasma 6.2. The main missing ones are Kubuntu, which will release in April with this KDE version, and Debian in some amount of time that is presumably pretty long. Now, of course, this might also mean that people who would have donated later down the road have all started donating in December because the notification reminded them. And so the following month will likely see a drop-off. Not all of these notifications will be recurring ones, some will be one-offs that won't be repeated. But it's still a huge win for such a simple system notification that only appears once a year and can be disabled. And apparently the feedback has been very positive on Reddit and on forums, so it's not even like this turned people against KDE because they would ask for money. Some people have a big problem in the open source community with projects asking for donations. Now, as Nate Graham says, this is not Thunderbird levels of money, referring to Thunderbird, the mail client. They added a full page inside of the app asking for donations, so obviously this is not on that level, but it's still a lot of money for KDE, and that's great because, well, they use all that money to pay people to do more work on KDE, so we can't complain. We're gonna get a better desktop out of that, and my notification, my donation is also in this entire pile that they receive. Now we have good news for Wayland and Linux users, because it looks like one of the biggest offenders when it comes to supporting our newest stack will finally start working properly. Discord has finally plugged everything needed to have audio and video sharing using Pipewire for Linux on Wayland, at least in their testing environment called Canary, like every other Chromium Electron apps testing environment. They added a little window letting you pick what you want to share and the sound channel you want to share, just like on every other operating system and on X11. And apparently, judging from the first comments, it seems to work perfectly as is. It will come to the stable Discord release at some point, and it will finally fix an open issue that is 4 years old. Apparently, it's mostly a problem with Chromium that just did not support that for the longest time. And so Electron apps, which also use Chromium to render stuff, didn't work with it either. And apparently it's not even that easy to get working, because there's still an open issue in Electron to get Wayland and Pipewire support working perfectly. So it seems Discord did a bit of extra work here. Some YouTube members and Patreon supporters told me that even after that update, per application audio streams still don't work, so there's still some stuff to do before it goes stable. And that's a friendly reminder that every time something doesn't really work on Wayland, something basic, it's almost never the fault of Wayland as a project. The protocols are here. Most of the compositors and drivers support everything that is needed for Wayland to work. Most of the subsystems also work. It's generally the application or the framework that just hasn't updated or just didn't do the work. In this case, it's Electron and Chromium not doing their job. It's not on Wayland. You could already get Discord video and audio sharing with the Wayland video bridge, which worked really well once you had installed that, but now you'll get native sharing, which I guess is better. That's one less piece of software that you need to have running in the background. Now, the data mining of Steam and Valve related stuff keeps going, and it looks like some people unearthed some branding guidelines that definitely points to Valve looking at bringing SteamOS to other devices. We, of course, knew that they wanted to do that at some point because, well, they said that they wanted to do that, but there were no real concrete steps taken, or at least any real steps visible to us, the general public, to indicate that this plan was moving forward. And this is changing, because the Steam branding guidelines have been updated for the first time since 2017, and now include a Powered by SteamOS logo in black on white or white on black. The guidelines indicate that this logo is meant to let customers know that a device runs SteamOS, but also boots SteamOS by default. So this is for devices that have SteamOS as their main and presumably only pre-installed operating system. This little logo joins the long list of logos that let publishers and developers indicate to customers that their game is on Steam, that it works with Steam Link or Steam VR. So that's a hard confirmation that Valve still wants to do that, and that we must be close by to one of these devices coming out, because you don't update the branding guidelines if you don't already have partnerships. That's probably the last thing you do after you started putting in place these partnerships, presumably with contracts that give a few obligations to partners on what they can use, the controllers they support, the interface, and the personalization they can or cannot do. Meaning, we might see a SteamOS powered device soon, and maybe we'll also see a standalone SteamOS ISO that we can install on our computers if we want to build our own home consoles or install that, the official SteamOS release, on any other handheld. So that's really nice. That's more devices running SteamOS in the hands of more people. That's good for Linux gaming, and that's good for Linux in general as a platform. The Cosmic Desktop received its 4th alpha this week, refining this little experimental desktop a bit further. First, there are new panels in the settings. You can finally configure the region and language options, so you can set the language, the formats, and all other region-based things. Second, you now have default application choices in the System and Accounts panel, so you can pick which apps will open which types of files. There are also new power management options to control display timeout and to control suspend on laptops. The display settings now have variable refresh rate support, which is really nice, and the Cosmic Store now lets you monitor in-progress downloads, updates, and installs in a separate panel that you can display or hide. They also made some progress on accessibility. The first accessibility applet can be added to the panel, even though it only really gives you access to the screen reader for now, and even that isn't fully complete because it only works with the Cosmic settings, some GTK and Qt apps, but not all Cosmic apps just yet. So there's more work to do here. Performance was also improved across the board. They fixed a lot of bugs, and that's nice because in terms of performance, Cosmic didn't feel necessarily super speedy for a brand new desktop. You would have expected something without all the legacy code bases and legacy code to move a bit faster than GNOME or KDE, but it didn't really feel this way, so more performance, always cool. And apparently they're also now working on Cosmic Player, which is a video player specifically for Cosmic, which I will admit I'm not sure why they focus on that right now, because it's very basic. Any other app would have worked because don't really care about the look of the interface for the video player, and there are probably many other things that they should focus on first, but at the very least you will have a video player. Now, as always, you can upgrade in place from a previous alpha if you were running that somewhere on a spare computer, and I will admit, I thought this would move just a little bit faster. They came off really strong right off the bat with the first alpha. It already covered a lot of what a desktop needs to do, but since then it hasn't really moved all that fast. I'm still very excited to see where it lands, and I will give them all the time they want or need to make something polished and fully featured, because I would rather they put out a first version that really works well than having some kind of half-baked beta that they publish to everyone and to their customers and having a terrible first impression. Now, despite Intel's current woes, they're still moving forward with their Arc GPU, something that was very much not guaranteed at all after the disastrous launch of the first iteration. They announced the new Battle Mage series of cards, and these cards will apparently get their full open source drivers for Linux, which is really nice. At least it will be nice if the drivers are good, unlike the first Intel Arc GPU drivers for Linux, which were half-baked at best. Battle Mage cards are going to use Xe2 graphics, like the recent integrated GPUs, so presumably they can use parts of that already existing driver to make their Linux drivers work a bit easier. Now, the first chip that they introduced is the BMG G21 with 20 cores, 20 ray tracing units, GDDR6 memory, and it apparently totals up to 70% better performance per core and a 50% improvement in performance per watt compared to their previous architecture. It's been tested on 37 games, presumably the ones that gave the biggest numbers. As always, Intel marketing is not amongst the most reliable out of all GPU makers. Not that any GPU maker has reliable marketing either. The cards making use of this chip will be the Arc B580 and B570, respectively, with 12 gigs of VRAM and 10 gigs of VRAM, and of course a higher clock speed and power usage for the B580. They didn't announce a higher end model yet to replace the Arc 770, so these new cards are to be considered mid-range offerings for 1440p gaming. Intel's benchmark show the B580 at 24% faster than the A750 and 10% faster than an RTX 4060, on Windows at least. The cards seem reasonably priced for GPUs at $250 for the B580 and $220 for the B570. Of course, that's recommended pricing. Now, these could be interesting cards, assuming the Linux drivers are actually good, but Intel has a history of always ending up fixing their drivers and having decent driver support on Linux, even though that's not really been the case with Xe, Xe2 and Arc graphics recently. And honestly, if Intel can succeed and have a solid presence in the mid-range market, it's gonna add more competition for AMD and Nvidia, and in general, competition drives prices down. Since GPUs are very expensive these days, it would be nice to have a third challenger to have all those prices lowered just a little bit. That would probably be better for everyone involved. Now, we've talked a bit a while back about certain distributions looking at providing optimized builds of their packages for newer CPUs. For example, building all their packages for x86-64 v3, which would leave out some older CPUs because, well, those packages would require certain instruction sets that older CPUs don't have, but it would mean better performance for more recent CPUs. Well, Linus Torvalds doesn't think that's a good idea at all, at least not when the Linux kernel is concerned. In his usual strong words, he said that this V2, V3, etc. naming scheme is stupid and needs to go away because it has no relevance. He called this entire thing a mind fart and asked other developers to not introduce this in the kernel. Another word he used is garbage, saying it's completely unofficial, that it doesn't really describe any real cutoff between CPU versions or architectures, and that since it isn't a linear progression, no one really agrees on what v3, v4 is and what it actually contains. He says that he instead is in favor of more simplification of the build options of the kernel instead of adding more options to support these CPU variants and feature levels. He says that this specific tuning for specific CPUs doesn't serve a purpose for the kernel specifically. And this won't prevent distributions from compiling different packages using various flags to only support recent GPUs, but at the very least the code of the Linux kernel will likely not have specific variants and specific build options to build versions of the kernel optimized for a specific CPU. I can't say if that's good or not, if Torvalds is right or not. It looks like Ubuntu and Fedora and Red Hat seem to think that it's good to have these optimizations. Torvalds seems to think that it's not, but he didn't say it in really the best terms or the best words. Some people just were flagged and banned by the Code of Conduct for employing similar languages, presumably targeted to one specific person, where Torvalds is targeting a lot of people without naming them, but it's still kind of the same issue here. You don't talk to people like that, even when you're only referring to their ideas. And I can't leave you without telling you about our sponsor. It's Tuxedo Computers. They've been sponsoring this channel for the best part of 3 years, I think, and I only use their stuff nowadays. Everything that you see on the channel, that you can listen in my various podcasts, it is done on one of their computers running their distribution, Tuxedo OS. It's done on one of their laptops. And all my gaming needs are served by one of their desktops sitting right underneath this desk. They have a big choice of computers, of components, of options, of customizations. They ship to most countries in the world, even though they're based in Germany, and they have something for every need and every price point. If you need a new computer, you want to run Linux on it, and you want to make sure that what you buy actually supports Linux well, and you want to support a company that actively contributes to Linux's development, click the link in the description of the video and get yourself a Tuxedo computer. They're really, really good. Anyway, thank you all for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed listening to it or watching it or whatever. You know what to do with all the usual YouTube buttons. It really helps the channel. It really helps it grow. It really helps it maintain even the same number of views, which is nice. And if you really enjoy what I do and you want a daily version of these news, you can support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships. All the links are in the description and you'll see all the perks as usual. So thanks for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one next week. Bye!